To everyone's eyes, she disappeared in the fall, but the truth is that Marina had vanished long before that. Not from the city, nor from school, but from her own body. When they found her, 3 months later, she wasn't hidden in a basement or lost in a forest, but sitting on a park bench in the city center, in broad daylight with the same look she had when she was called nobody at home. The detail that caused a stir, the one that made headlines scream in tones of scandal and despair, wasn't just her physical condition, but what she held in her arms. A newborn baby, wrapped in a cloth sewn together from pieces of old children's clothes and worn-out pillowcases. She was only 10 years old. The baby was alive, healthy, but Marina didn't speak. She didn't cry. She didn't tremble. She just stared ahead, as if still trapped in something others' eyes couldn't see. When the police arrived, when reporters began to swarm, when social workers tried to talk to her, she clutched the baby to her chest and said only one sentence, almost whispering, "He doesn't have a name yet, but he's mine." The city stopped. The city that hadn't seen her before. The city that passed by her every day and didn't notice. Marina was the girl from the blue house with closed windows at the end of Cedar Street. The girl who, according to neighbors, seemed so quiet, always so clean, such a blessed child. The girl who didn't smile in school photos and was never invited to play. The girl of Isabella Whitman, the stepdaughter, the orphan no one officially adopted. The one who didn't show up at parent-teacher meetings. The one whose name wasn't on the doctors' lists, the dentists', or the city's. And now she was headlines. And the world wanted to know. But Nathaniel Grayson already knew. He had seen that look before. He was the first to see her as more than a shadow in the blue house. And now, seeing her on the news, holding that baby with the same small hands that once carried a faceless doll, he felt something in his chest break again. Because, despite everything he had done, despite all his efforts to get her out of there years ago, the truth was that Marina had never fully left. And no one knew why. Because she went back, voluntarily, to the place everyone fought to get her out of, and to give birth there, in that house, with Isabella. 3 years earlier, Marina had been legally adopted by Nathaniel after the process that sent Isabella to prison. But Isabella served only 2 years of her sentence, based on good behavior, and an appeal granted by a judge who never looked into the girl's eyes. When she was released, Isabella vanished from the city, and Marina tried to live. She tried to smile. She learned to write with more confidence, to draw with more color. She and Claudia exchanged letters almost every day. Nathaniel took her on short trips, taught her to plant herbs in the backyard, kept her bedroom door always unlocked. But there were days when Marina simply stopped. She would sit in silence, staring at a corner of the room, as if something old still whispered. Nathaniel respected it. He knew healing wasn't erasing, and that silences are sometimes prayers still without a name. Last summer she began to change. She woke up earlier, her face more tense. She stopped drawing. She cut her hair herself without warning. One night, he found her sitting in the backyard, staring into nothingness. When he approached and asked if she wanted to talk, she answered with something he didn't expect. "If I said I wanted to see her, would you let me go?" He didn't understand right away. See who? Her. Silence. He felt a chill. No one wants to force you to forget, Marina. But going back won't give you the answers you didn't get. It'll only open new wounds. "I know," she said, "but there's something there that's mine. Something she didn't take, that I need to take back." Nathaniel said no. He was firm. But 2 weeks later, Marina disappeared. No note, no warning, no trace. The police were called. Claudia cried for days. Nathaniel collapsed emotionally, guilt mixing with pain, rereading every word of their last conversation, as if a different phrase could have prevented the worst. 3 months passed, and now she was there, in the city center, with a baby in her arms, and silence in her eyes. The hospital confirmed that both she and the baby were fine. No signs of recent physical violence. The pregnancy had been high risk, but the birth had apparently been carried out with some makeshift care. The baby wasn't malnourished, but Marina refused to say where she had been. Only after many days, in a rainy early morning, did she finally ask to see Nathaniel. He went, and found her sitting on a bed with white sheets, looking at the crib beside her. When she saw him, she didn't smile, didn't cry. She just said, "He has a name now, it's Elias." Nathaniel sat beside her. "Your father's name," he said. his voice breaking. She nodded. "Do you want to tell me what happened?" Marina took a deep breath. The words seemed to catch in her throat. "She sent me a letter." "Isabella?" "Yes. She said she was sick. Said she needed me." Nathaniel closed his eyes. "I went. In secret. I just wanted to see, to talk to her. But when I got there, she wasn't sick." "Did she lock you up again?" "She didn't have to. I stayed." "Why?" The answer took a while, but it came as a whisper that cut deeper than a scream. "Because I wanted to understand. I wanted to know why she did all that. And because I thought if I stayed, maybe she'd see me. Maybe for the first time." Nathaniel didn't say anything. He didn't need to. Marina looked at the crib. "But what I found there wasn't love. It was a new kind of silence. One that didn't hurt like before, but killed from the inside. And when I found out I was pregnant, I thought about running. I thought about ending it all, but when I heard his heart beating for the first time, I knew he wouldn't be born like me. He wouldn't live like I lived." She swallowed hard. "So I waited. I waited until the day I could leave. And when I did, I went straight to the most public place, where she couldn't reach me anymore." Nathaniel wiped his eyes, trying to hold back the emotion. "You saved him, Marina. You saved yourself." She looked at him for the first time with a shadow of a smile. "And you still want to be my father, even so." Nathaniel reached out his hand. Now more than ever, the decision to allow Marina and baby Elias to return home with Nathaniel wasn't made easily. The hospital and social workers wanted clearer answers, a more detailed history, a legal guardian present at every step. But Rafael Mendoza, the old lawyer who had already navigated legal labyrinths for Marina years before, reappeared with the same quiet firmness and sharp arguments. "She may be silent, but she's alive, she's conscious, and she has the right to raise her own child under protection and supervision. The state failed her once. It won't fail her again." Nathaniel brought Marina back home on a cold morning, the sky white as paper, the wind slicing through the streets as if trying to erase everything the city had said in recent days. In the back seat, Marina held Elias with more care than one holds a baby. She held him as if he were the last thread keeping her from dissolving. Upon arriving, she didn't ask to see her old room, nor did she ask about her drawings or the garden. She only asked for a clean blanket and a chair by the window. She sat there for hours while Elias slept. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. But she watched the movement of the street as if relearning the rhythm of the world. Nathaniel respected it. He had learned to do that, give space without turning his back. On the second day, she accepted a bowl of soup. On the third, she washed her own clothes. On the fourth, she let Claudia in. Her friend arrived with hesitant steps, a colorful notebook in her hands and teary eyes. They looked at each other for several seconds before any words were spoken. "You came back," Claudia said. Marina nodded. "Are you okay?" She didn't answer with words. She just placed Elias in Claudia's arms. The girl held the baby with reverent care, her eyes wide as if holding a promise. After that, neither spoke again. Claudia stayed until night fell, counting Elias's heartbeats with her fingers, as if wanting to memorize the sound. But the city wasn't as quiet as Marina. Even as time passed, questions buzzed like flies around an open wound. Who was the baby's father? How did she survive so long locked away? Where exactly had she been? Why did she go back? Journalists tried to force interviews. The neighbor across the street spread rumors. School teachers reopened old files. And though Rafael and Nathaniel managed to shield Marina's custody, nothing stopped people from speculating and judging. And then a letter arrived, anonymous. On the envelope, just 2 words: the truth. Inside, a handwritten page, trembling, angry, bitter. She came back because she wanted to. She wasn't kidnapped. She stayed because she liked it. She got food, had a bed, had a baby, and didn't even try to run. I never hit her since she left the adoption. She came back on her own. Now she wants to play the victim again? Be careful. The truth has more eyes than she thinks. Nathaniel read the letter and didn't show it to Marina. Rafael had it scanned, filed, and requested judicial protection in case it escalated further. The letter wasn't signed, but everyone knew who wrote it. Isabella was out there, free, her whereabouts unknown. The authorities claimed there was no evidence to reopen any case. Marina, after all, wasn't reporting. She wasn't confirming. She was just caring for her baby and waiting. But Marina's waiting wasn't passive. Inside, she was fermenting something. Each diaper change, each feeding, each sleepless night with Elias crying was also a way of stitching her own heart. Marina wasn't seeking justice. She was stitching identity. Slowly she began drawing again. Not monsters, nor houses without doors, but windows. Many windows. Always open. In the sky, on the walls, on the floor. Windows with curtains swaying, with flowers on the sills, with hands waving from inside. Nathaniel saw each drawing as a letter without an envelope. Each stroke was a diary page she couldn't write with words. One day, Marina placed one of those drawings on the fridge door. In it, a house with 2 large windows. In front, a girl holding hands with a boy with blue hair. "Is that Elias?" Nathaniel asked. "It is," Marina replied, and it was the first time she spoke spontaneously since she returned. The school proposed that Marina return to classes gradually. First, a private tutor, then integration with old classmates. But she refused. "Not yet," she said. "He needs me more than school does." And no one dared contradict her, because everyone in some way knew Marina was still emerging from a house with windows locked from the inside. But what no one knew, not even Nathaniel until weeks later, was that Marina had been writing letters, not to the judge, nor to journalists, but to the baby. She kept them in a wooden box with a cloth-embroidered lid. Inside, dated envelopes, carefully aligned with small, precise handwriting. "Dear Elias, today I was afraid to touch you. I thought I might mess up, like they messed up with me. But when you grabbed my finger, I understood that love can start from zero. Dear Elias, you smiled today with your eyes closed. No one taught me what to do with that kind of joy, so I just cried a little and kept looking. Dear Elias, today the world outside seemed calm, and for a second, I wanted to take you to see it. But not yet, not yet." It was the diary of someone who never had a lap to sit on, but now was the lap for someone else. And slowly, this new love began to heal, even what Marina didn't know how to name. Until one Saturday afternoon, while Claudia helped Nathaniel organize old boxes in the basement, they found something Marina had never mentioned, a small metal box, locked with an old padlock. Nathaniel recognized it immediately. It was the box where Marina used to hide her scraps, memories, burned papers from her childhood, but she had never wanted to open it, never gave the key. Upon finding it again, Nathaniel went upstairs and asked, "Do you want to open it?" Marina hesitated, then nodded. She took the box, looked at it for several minutes. Finally, she pulled a thin chain from her neck, where a small key hung. She fitted it into the padlock, turned it. Inside was a faceless doll, the first note rescued from the ashes, a piece of fabric with dried blood, a letter that said, "If I don't get out, don't let her keep everything," and at the bottom a paper folded many times. Marina picked it up carefully, as if touching a fragile body. When she opened it, she read what she herself had written years ago, sewn into the hem of her shirt on the day she was almost taken at the train station. "If someone finds this, please don't let her take me. I don't want to. I won't go. I am Marina. I want to stay." She didn't cry. She just took a deep breath and said, "This here is my certificate of life, the only one I wrote myself." Nathaniel looked at her in silence, then said, "Do you want to show it to anyone?" Marina thought, then answered, "I want to show it to him, to Elias, one day, when he can understand. I want him to know that even when no one chose me, I chose myself, and I chose him." The days passed like wind-blowing curtains, silent, continuous, but full of small changes. Marina, little by little, allowed herself to leave the house for short walks with Elias. First, just to the sidewalk, then around the block. One afternoon, Claudia showed up with 2 children's bicycles, one of them with a baby seat attached. "It's too early for him to ride," Marina commented, almost smiling. "But it's not too early for us to practice for when he can," Claudia retorted, with that playful tone that reminded Marina of when everything was lighter, even amidst the darkness. That week, Marina wrote letter number 50 to Elias, a milestone. "Dear Elias, today, Mommy rode a bicycle for the first time. I fell, of course. Claudia laughed so much I got mad, but in the end I laughed too, because even with a scraped knee it was good, it was freedom, it was new, and you watched everything with those big eyes, as if saying, "Go, Mommy, fall more, but go." At night, while Elias slept in the makeshift crib near her bed, Marina watched his profile. Each feature felt like a redemption, as if, through that small being, everything taken from her was being returned, drop by drop. But the city still whispered. Some people murmured when they saw Marina at the market. Others crossed the street discreetly. The past was too heavy for some, too uncomfortable for others. "It's just time," Nathaniel said. "They'll forget." But Marina didn't want them to forget. She wanted them to understand, to truly see. It was in that spirit that she accepted, for the first time, the invitation from the new school principal to give a short testimony in a project about child resilience. Nathaniel hesitated. Raphael, too. "It's exposure," the lawyer said. "What if Isabella—" "She already exposed me entirely without asking," Marina replied. "Now it's my turn. I don't want to scream. I just want to say, I survived." The school auditorium was full, with students, teachers, and some parents. Marina took the stage wearing a simple blouse, her hair now chin-length, and a small necklace with a pencil-shaped pendant, a gift from Claudia. She carried Elias in her arms, asleep. There was no microphone. She didn't read a speech, she just spoke. "For years my name didn't appear in records. I was just the girl from the Blue House. No one called me. No one asked if I wanted to play. And when I screamed, because yes, I screamed, no one heard. One day, someone saw me. Just saw me. And that was enough for everything to change. Today, I'm here with my son. And you can call me Marina, because that's the name I'll never let be erased again." Silence in the room. Some teary eyes, some timid applause, others sincere. Marina stepped off the stage in peace. Outside, Claudia waited with a glass of juice and a small surprise, an envelope. "It arrived today for you, no sender." Marina took the envelope. Her hands trembled. She opened it. Inside, just a handwritten paper. "You won, but you didn't beat me. I'm still here. And one day, Elias will know who I really am." It was Isabella's handwriting. Marina didn't say anything. But that night, after everyone was asleep, she took out the wooden box and placed that letter inside, next to the old ones. Then she wrote another for Elias. "Dear Elias, sometimes the past knocks at the door, but now the house is mine, and whoever knocks waits outside." The next morning, Nathaniel found Marina in the backyard, watering the small garden. New plants, new colors. "Is Elias sleeping?" he asked. "No. He's in the crib, looking at the sky. I think he already understands more than we imagine." Nathaniel smiled, then sat on the steps, picked up an envelope and handed it to her. "Invitation. Launch of the new community housing project. There'll be a small ceremony. Want to go with me?" Marina looked at the paper, took a deep breath. "I do, but I want to speak too." "Speak?" "Yes. I want to tell people what it means to live in a place where the door doesn't lock from the inside. I want other Marinas to have a way out before they need to scream." Nathaniel nodded. He knew. The girl who was once silence was now a seed, and a seed knows how to wait, but it also knows how to grow. The ceremony took place on an afternoon with an open sky, colorful tents, soft music, and posters made by children. The new village of simple but well-built houses would be a home for dozens of families who, like Marina, had faced abandonment and violence. When it was time for speeches, Nathaniel spoke first. Then he looked at her. Marina took the stage with Elias in her arms. "I lived in a house for many years where the windows didn't open, and it wasn't just wood or glass. It was people's gazes, the silence of neighbors, the bureaucracy that called me dependent instead of child. Today I live where there's a garden, where there's bread on the table, and where, if I cry, someone will hear. Everyone deserves that. Elias deserves that. And I deserve that too." Applause, tears, a new beginning. Later, when they returned home, Marina drew a tree, and on the trunk she wrote, "The house grows when the silence ends." And for the first time, she hung a drawing on the front door. The days following the community event marked a definitive turning point not only in Marina's life, but also in the city's perception of her. The forgotten girl who once nearly vanished within her own story was now seen, not as a symbol of tragedy, but as a living, active, undeniable presence. Children waved to her on the streets. Single mothers approached with words of admiration. Some parents, once distant, stopped to greet her respectfully. Marina, silenced for so many years, was now heard, not by shouting but by staying. However, the true impact wasn't in the city's reception. It was in Elias. He began crawling among the garden pots, his curious brown eyes like those of a newborn animal in a safe world. He learned to laugh loudly, clap his hands, repeat sounds without fear. And Marina laughed with him. Each of Elias's new discoveries was like a note in a song she never knew how to sing, and now memorized by heart. She didn't just care for him. She rebuilt herself in every feeding, every cloth toy, every sleepless night. But the past, even when gagged, doesn't disappear. It learns to wait, and when the moment is right, it whispers again. One Sunday afternoon, Nathaniel was sorting through old papers when he found a folder Raphael had left years before. Inside, copies of the adoption process, medical records, photographs, and, what disturbed him most, an unopened letter. It was a yellow envelope, postmarked before Marina's disappearance, addressed to her, but sent from the prison. The sender's name, Isabella Whitman. Nathaniel hesitated. He could tear it up, he could keep it, but he chose to show it. That night, he sat with Marina at the table. This was in the old paperwork. We never knew it arrived. She looked at the envelope as if it were a sleeping snake. "Do you want me to read it to you?" Marina nodded. Nathaniel opened it, read, "Marina, I don't know what to write. Maybe because I never knew what to say. You always looked at me with those questioning eyes. But I never had an answer. I know what I did. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to know that there were moments when I almost loved you, and maybe that condemns me even more, because even that I couldn't do fully. I don't know how to love, but you, maybe you can. Maybe one day you'll forgive, or maybe not. But this letter is just that, an attempt, not to bring you back, but to say that if you're reading this, it's because you won." Silence. Nathaniel folded the letter carefully, placed it on the table. Marina stared at it for a few seconds, then said quietly, "She tried to name something she never gave a name to. Do you want to keep it?" "I do." "Why?" "Because if Elias ever asks about her, I want to show that even the cruelest silence can try to become words." That night Marina wrote another letter to Elias. "Dear Elias, today I learned that sometimes even monsters write letters. But what sets them apart from humans is that they write only for themselves, not to be read. I'll write to you so you can read, even if it takes time, even if it hurts. I want you to know everything, because the truth sets you free, even when it cuts." The months passed. Elias took his first steps between the sofa and the bookshelf, fell, got up, laughed, said his first word, "Ma." Marina froze for a moment, startled, but then saw his eyes pointing to the bottle. Ma was hunger, not a ghost. She laughed, cried, hugged him. In the spring, Claudia and Marina began setting up a small bookshelf in the neighborhood square. A free reading point, they called it. Donations from neighbors, handmade posters, a box of notes with encouraging phrases. Marina didn't write the phrases, but Elias placed the notes in the box with his still unsteady hands. And that was enough. One day, while organizing the books, Marina found one she knew well, an old copy of a children's book about talking animals. It was the same story of the fox and the rabbit burned years ago. She opened it, and there it was, the same phrase, "You deserve to be loved." She sat on the bench, placed Elias in her lap, and read, this time without needing to hide, without fear of burning, without fear of anyone taking it away. That night, she placed the book in his room, as an heirloom. But far away, Isabella reappeared. Not physically, but in the judicial system. A new lawsuit, a challenge to inheritance rights. According to her lawyers, Marina had been influenced, lacked maturity, and the assets left by her father should be reviewed. Raphael called Nathaniel immediately. "We'll need Marina to write a statement." "She's ready," Nathaniel replied. The next day, Marina sat at Nathaniel's office desk, picked up the pen, looked at Elias playing with wooden blocks on the rug. Then she wrote, "I am Marina B. Grayson. I was taken from a place where silence was stronger than any scream. I lived, survived, and today I exist. I won't give up what's mine, not just for justice, but because this is the last link her voice has over me. I want this to end, not to forget her, but to remember who I am." The signature trembled, but it was firm. It was the end of an invisible line that had run through her body since she was 5 years old. The lawsuit was quick, faster than anyone expected. In less than 3 months, the judge dismissed all of Isabella's requests, recognizing Nathaniel's custody and Marina's partial legal emancipation as Elias's mother as irrevocable. The judicial decision came with a rare public note, where the judge stated, "This court recognizes that there are pains that cannot be erased with papers, but the right to be free must be recorded so that silence does not win again." Marina didn't celebrate. She didn't go around handing out smiles. She just looked at the paper, folded it carefully, placed it in the wooden box alongside the letters, the sewn note, Elias's ultrasound photo. That box was now her reliquary, not of pain, but of passage, like the markers left on trails by those who survived the forest. It was on that same day that she decided to write a different letter, not to Elias, not to Isabella, but to herself. "Dear Marina, for a long time, you thought living was surviving. You thought every day no one yelled at you was a good day. You thought you only existed if someone ordered, controlled, told you what to do. But today you have the key. Today you choose when to open and when to close. Today you can sleep in the middle of the bed, eat the last slice of cake, keep a drawing just for yourself, say no without explaining, and say yes without apologizing. You have a son who smiles at your presence, and a home where your voice isn't an echo, but a center. You are real, and that is enough." Marina placed this letter in a blue envelope and hid it at the back of the bookshelf, between hardcover books, like an intimate pact of continuation. The next morning, Claudia arrived early, with a nervous smile on her face. "There's a literary festival in the next town," she said. "They've opened a space for reading encouragement projects, and someone from the school sent photos of our square's bookshelf." Marina looked at her with a raised eyebrow. "It wasn't me, I swear. They want you to speak about the project, about childhood, about freedom. Claudia, you don't have to tell your story. Just show that stories matter." Marina stayed silent, then smiled. Small, but real. "Then let's go." And they went. They arrived in the neighboring town with Elias in her arms and a small bag of illustrated books. The local school's booth had drawings on the walls, cushions on the floor, an improvised stage in the back. Marina didn't take the stage. She sat on the floor with the children. Elias slept in the sling strapped to her chest. She read stories, quiet voice, measured, eyes attentive to the small gazes that sparkled. Then she spoke about the bookshelf in the square, about how an old book can be the start of a new world. She didn't mention Isabella, nor abuse, nor courts. But at the end, she said something that made everyone pause. "I was a child no one saw. Today I read so no child feels invisible." Applause. Hugs, invitations to speak at other schools. Projects began to form. The bookshelf became a symbol. The girl who was never called was now a reference. But at home, Marina still kept the small rituals, changing the water for the plants, letting the bread sit overnight before eating, singing Elias to sleep, and writing letters. Even when the days seemed light, she wrote, because she knew yesterday's weight doesn't vanish, it just organizes itself differently in the soul. On a rainy Saturday, while cleaning the kitchen with Nathaniel, Marina noticed something different in his gaze, a disguised exhaustion, an old pain that sometimes surfaced. "Are you okay?" "I am." "You're lying." He laughed. "It's just that sometimes I still wonder if I did everything I could. When you ran away, when you came back, I blamed myself so much." Marina looked at him, picked up a cloth, dried her hands, and said, "You taught me to wait without squeezing. And that saved more than you can imagine." Nathaniel didn't respond, just nodded. Later she left a note in his room. "Every tree needs shade to grow. You were my shade, when no one else knew if I could bloom." That night, Nathaniel cried alone, not from pain, but from permission. Permission to believe that sometimes the love we offer in silence is more powerful than any speech. And Marina, lying with Elias in her arms, dreamed of a train station. But this time, no one was pulling her. She was on the platform, and someone was saying, "The train that's leaving isn't yours. Yours is the one arriving now." The summer arrived with its golden mornings and lazy afternoons. Marina now took Elias to the park almost every day, sat under the same tree, let him play with stones and leaves, and watched the other children running, as if they were waves of a childhood that was finally reaching her too. Claudia sometimes joined, other times brought new mothers who wanted to talk to Marina, hear her story, understand how pain can turn into a bridge. But one of those afternoons brought something Marina didn't expect. A woman with straight black hair, a gentle expression, and eyes that held things no one else could see, approached with a restrained step. "Are you Marina?" "Yes. I'm teacher Lucia. I taught your mother, Isabella, in the 80s. I saw her only a few times after that. But when I saw you in that newspaper, with your baby, something touched me. I had to come." Marina didn't know what to say. She just kept looking. She was a lonely child, intelligent, but she carried an emptiness we never fully understood. Back then, no one talked about trauma, emotional abandonment. Today, looking back, I wonder if everything she became was also what they failed to do for her. Marina lowered her eyes. "I'm not saying that justifies it. I know. But Gil, maybe you broke a cycle, and that girl, and that's rare." Marina thanked her with a light nod. That night, she wrote to Elias, "Dear Elias, today a stranger spoke of the woman who hurt me, as if she too was once a wounded child. I don't know what to do with that yet, but maybe one day I'll tell you, maybe one day you'll understand that pain doesn't come from nowhere, and that sometimes the hardest thing isn't to forgive, it's to understand." The following months were transformative. Marina began actively participating in support groups for teenage mothers. She started studying child psychology remotely, read at night while Elias slept, took notes, built small projects. One day, she showed Nathaniel, "I want to open a space, small but real, for mothers and children who need refuge. Not shelter, refuge, with the smell of warm food, with colorful walls, with voices that listen." Nathaniel held the paper and stayed silent, then said, "I'll help." And he did. And Raphael too. And Claudia. And the school itself. It took almost a year, but on a May morning, with the ground still damp from rain, Marina turned the key and opened the door to Open House, the region's first community center, dedicated to welcoming neglected mothers and children victims of domestic violence. On the door, a phrase embroidered by Claudia, "Here, every story begins with a name." The space was simple, but there were rugs on the floor, toys, a stocked kitchen, a reading corner, a place to draw, and a mural, with dozens of names written by small hands, names of those who entered and were seen, and stayed. In the first month, 9 mothers passed through. In the second, 15. Marina knew each one by name, and called their children with a tone that didn't shout, didn't command, but welcomed. Elias ran between everyone's legs like the mascot of a hope that had learned to walk. One afternoon, Nathaniel arrived early at the center and saw Marina sitting on the floor with a teenage mother who was crying, her baby in her arms. Marina didn't say anything, just held her hand, letting the silence say, "I've been here too." That night, Nathaniel wrote for the first time a letter to Marina. "Dear Marina, I never told you this, but for years I wondered why you chose to go back to that woman's house. When you ran away from me, when you disappeared, I blamed myself like never before, but today I understand. You didn't go back to be a victim. You went back to end a story, to take back what was yours, to rename what they tried to silence. You taught me that courage isn't in escaping pain. It's in facing it until it no longer rules us. Thank you for letting me stay. With love, Nathaniel." Marina kept that letter in the box, with the others, but in a separate compartment. Because this one was different. It wasn't about survival. It was about life. And that weekend, when Elias said for the first time, "Mommy, I love you," Marina didn't cry. She just held his small face in her hands and answered, "I do too, and I always will." The community center grew slowly, as things with roots do. No big announcements, no flashy signs. What sustained that place was the silent network of hands reaching out, sometimes fragile but firm. Claudia organized the art workshops. Raphael offered free legal advice once a week, and Nathaniel took care of the building's maintenance, cleaning gutters, changing light bulbs, fixing creaky doors. But it was Marina who named every corner of the house. The listening corner, the new beginning corner, the rest corner, and the most important, the name corner. There, every child received a handwritten nameplate glued to the wall as a certificate of existence. A reminder, you are here and you matter. One day, a young woman named Lara arrived at the center, 18 years old, a 7-month-old baby in her arms, and a torn backpack on her shoulders. She didn't say much at first. She sat in the corner with her son, eyes always down, as if waiting to be sent away. Marina didn't press. She just sat beside her. On the third day, Lara asked, "Have you ever been angry at your son?" Marina took a deep breath, then answered, "I've been afraid of not being good enough for him, but angry, and I think I have, when I thought he needed more than I could give, and that made me angry at myself, then at him, then at the world. But it never lasted long, because soon after came his look, and his look said, 'I'm here. Just love me the best you can.'" Lara didn't reply, but the next day she left her baby on the rug and helped Claudia organize the pencils for the workshop. That's how it started, without promises, just with presents. One afternoon, while sorting donations, Marina found a children's shirt with a small embroidered detail, a blue flower. She froze for a moment. It was identical to the one she wore in one of the few photos from her childhood, one of the only ones taken by Nathaniel in the first months after her escape. She didn't take the shirt. She just closed her eyes, then went to the wooden box and wrote another letter to Elias. "Today I understood that the past isn't erased or overcome. It transforms into something we learn to carry without letting it crush us. You won't grow up without pain, son. No one does. But if I can, I want every pain you feel to find a lap. And if that lap is mine, then it was all worth it." Elias was now running through the center's courtyard, running through the kitchen at home, running to Marina's bed every morning, shouting, "I woke up." Each run was a new word, a new expression, a new memory built with freedom. But one night after putting Elias to bed, Marina had a nightmare. She dreamed of the train station, of Isabella grabbing her arm, pulling her. She dreamed of muffled screams, the doll burning on the stove, the days without windows. She woke up gasping, eyes in tears. Nathaniel heard the noise and came in. "It was just a dream," he said, approaching slowly. "But it still lives here," Marina replied, touching her chest, like it left a hidden key inside. "And what do you want to do with it?" She looked at the window. "I want to give it back." Days later, she returned to the courthouse, not to reopen cases, but to make a request. She asked for official authorization to change her name. Marina B. Grayson would become Marina Elias Grayson. "Why?" the judge asked. "Because Elias is the name I chose myself. It's the name that was born with me, even after the pain. And because every time they call me by it, I want to remember that I started a new lineage." The change was approved. At the registry office, when she signed the papers, Marina looked at her son and said, "Now, every time I'm called, it's you who answers inside me." Claudia, who was there, cried silently. That night, Nathaniel prepared a special dinner. Nothing too elaborate: rice with chicken, sautéed vegetables, and an orange cake with a sugar crust. "It feels like we're celebrating something," Marina teased. "We are," he replied. "We're celebrating the birth of your true name." She smiled. And at the end of that day, while washing the dishes, she thought that maybe there are births that don't involve screams or blood. Some involve papers, silence, choice, and a firm signature, and that for her was birth enough. The following month seemed to pass more slowly, but this time, not because of fear, captivity, or waiting. It was as if time had finally found a new rhythm, suited to Marina's steps and Elias's first jumps. The house smelled of bread in the late afternoon, sounded of toys on the floor, and carried the laughter of a child who didn't know the sound of doors locking from the inside. One morning, Marina woke to the sound of rain hitting the roof. Elias was still asleep. She went downstairs quietly and found Nathaniel in the kitchen with 2 mugs of tea already prepared. "Knew you'd wake up with this noise," he said. "I can't hear rain and stay in bed. It reminds me of things, and also it cleans me inside." Nathaniel nodded. She looked out the window, watching the drops slide down the glass. "Do you think if she had truly loved me, everything would have been different?" "I think she didn't know what love was, and you learned it even without being taught." Marina took a deep breath. "Sometimes I think Elias will ask about her. One day. And I don't know how to answer without letting her shadow creep back in. You'll know, because you already know how to separate what she did to you from who you are, and that's what your son will hear, who you became despite her." Later that day, Claudia showed up with a bag of ribbons and colorful fabrics. "Let's do something," she said. "You've always sewn. Now I want you to sew something new, a flag, for the center. a flag that represents everything open house is. Marina looked at the colors, touched each piece of fabric as if it were memory. Blue like the sheet she used to hide under, yellow like the faceless doll, red like the fingertips that bled in winter, green like the garden now growing at her window, grey like the dust at the train station, white like Elias's first diaper. She sewed for days, didn't speak while doing it, just embroidered, in silence, like someone turning scars into thread and stitch. When she finished, she spread the flag on the floor. In the center there was a figure, a girl in a simple dress holding a child's hand. Behind them, an open door, and above, an entire sky made of windows. At the base, she embroidered in fine letters, "Here no one is born invisible." The flag was hung at the entrance of open house the following week, and that day, Marina didn't just welcome the new mothers, she spoke with a firm voice. "I sewed this flag with pieces of my story, not as a memory of pain, but as a reminder of where healing began. Every time someone walks through this door, I want them to know, you have a name, a place, and permission to start over." From that week on, Open House received a new wave of visitors. Teachers, nurses, social workers, people wanting to learn, listen, welcome better. A new program began there. Letters that continue. Marina coordinated mothers and children writing letters to each other, even if the children were still too young to read. They were seeds, declarations, anticipated memories. And one day, Marina wrote another letter to Elias, different from all the others. "Dear Elias, if one day I'm no longer here, not because I left, but because life has its ways, I want you to read these letters like someone opening windows. Each word is a part of me that wanted to hold you when you still didn't understand the world. You saved me without knowing. And if I can show you that you are whole, enough, and loved, then I've done my job. Not as a martyr, but as a mother. With all the love I learned to sow, Mommy." She placed this letter in a separate box and decided that on Elias's 10th birthday, she would give him all of them. Until then, she would keep writing, keep embroidering names and welcoming silences. On Elias's 2nd birthday, Open House held its first collective celebration. It wasn't just any party. It was a whole day dedicated to childhood restored, reinvented, and, in many cases, revealed for the first time. There were tables with drawings, small cakes made by the center's mothers, panels with phrases pasted by the children, and a paper tree in the main hallway, where each leaf bore the name of a mother who had passed through. Names that were once lost in records or forgotten in system papers. Now they were there, alive, visible, belonging. Marina arrived early with Elias in her arms and a bag of warm bread she'd made with Nathaniel. As she passed the tree of names, she touched a specific leaf with her own name embroidered by Claudia. The emotion came like a gentle tide, not violent, but undeniable. It wasn't sadness, it was a silent reverence for the path she'd traveled. The party unfolded with simple joy. Marina watched each mother approach their children with a care she knew well, a care made not of certainty, but of persistence. Because the love that heals isn't born ready. It's born from the desire not to repeat the pain. In the afternoon, a volunteer approached with a tablet in hand. "Marina, there's something I think you should see." A new retroactive custody request appeared in the state system, in the name of Isabella Whitman. Marina stayed silent, looked at Elias playing with building blocks on the floor. "She's alive?" "According to the records, yes, living in another state." The request was filed by local lawyers, but the content, it's threatening. It says you kidnapped her grandson and that the system failed to recognize her rights. Marina sighed. She doesn't know how to stop. Nathaniel was informed. Raphael was contacted. This time the response was quicker. Raphael drafted an official document declaring Marina as Elias's sole legal guardian, backed by the partial emancipation won earlier and the history of neglect by the former guardian. But Marina wanted more. "I want it recorded that if she tries to approach, she'll be held accountable." The judge listened, read the case, and without delay issued a permanent restraining order. "Not out of fear," he wrote in his justification, "but out of justice." Upon learning of the decision, Marina didn't celebrate. She just sat on the bench in Open House's courtyard and wrote the last letter she would keep in the old wooden box. "Isabella, this is not a letter of forgiveness, nor of revenge. It's a letter of release. Today the system recognized what my body always knew, that you were never home, that my existence doesn't depend on your permission, that my sun is too much light to fit in your shadow. I let you go, not so you feel free, but so I'm never your prisoner again. You will no longer hold the keys to my story. And even if you never read these words, I want you to know, I survived, and that is enough. She folded the paper calmly, placed it in the box and sealed it with tape. She would never open it again. Claudia arrived later, bringing a gift for Elias, a book with an embroidered fabric cover. Inside, blank pages. It's for him to write his own stories, she said, because he'll have a choice and that changes everything. Marina smiled. Yes, it changes everything. And as she placed the book on the shelf in his room, next to the toys, Marina whispered, "Now it's you who will write." Time passed, as it does for everyone, but differently for those who've lived confined. Marina learned to cherish each season as if it were the first. Elias's birthdays became rituals of light, not just celebrations, but milestones of freedom. Each candle lit represented more than age. It represented the fact that he was growing in a place where his voice would always be heard, where his steps would be followed, and where his name, above all, would never be forgotten. Open House, now in its third year, was recognized as a reference throughout the region. It received support from the local government, partnerships with schools, and new volunteers who came from afar just to learn. But even with the growth, Marina kept everything with the same spirit as when it began. A house where the front door was never a symbol of exit, but of entry. One late spring afternoon, Nathaniel walked through the house's hallway and found Marina sitting on the porch, her eyes fixed on the horizon, and Elias asleep in her lap. Beside her, a brown envelope with a newly arrived letter. A young woman from São Paulo had read about her story and sent a personal account. She had suffered abuse in childhood, but couldn't tell anyone. Only after hearing Marina speak in a video lecture did she find the courage to write. "She said that if you found your voice, maybe she could too," Nathaniel said, handing her the envelope. Marina didn't say anything. She just placed the envelope beside the chair. Then she took Elias's letter notebook, now almost full, and wrote one more. "Dear Elias, when you're old enough to understand that the world has shadows, I want you to know that you were, for me, the crack through which the light came in. Before you, I was silence. Before you, I sowed to survive. Now, I write to stay. You are not my salvation. You are my continuation. And even if one day the world tells you it's hard, it's dark, it's heavy, I want you to know, there's always someone who saw the light first because of you. With love that cannot be measured, your mother." That night, before going to bed, Marina opened the bookshelf, took a new blank notebook, and wrote on the first page, in large letters, "Letters to myself, now that I know who I am." Because it was no longer about escape, nor about pain, nor about the past that burned like hot iron in her heart. Now it was about staying, about a name no one could erase anymore, about a home where love wasn't asked for in a whisper, but lived in a full voice. And, at the end of that night, when Nathaniel turned off the lights and looked at Marina tucking Elias's blanket, he knew, without needing words, that he had arrived exactly where he needed to be, not as a savior, but as someone who knew how to wait. And Elias, even in his sleep, seemed to smile, as if he knew that from then on no train station could ever take him away, because he was already home, and the name of that home was love.